Well, hello, and welcome to the last edition of the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday for the 2019 year. Thank you for taking some of your time to join us and be a part of today's program where we will be discussing optimal vegetarianism. So we're going to clear up some scientific things and then go into specifically how a person can start making changes and get themselves on a vegetarian diet, if that's what you like, for the best health. And in addition, we'll be going through the specifics of how you can do that, and you won't need any supplements. So you don't have to go and buy stuff from the vitamin shop or GNC or any of these other places. You won't necessarily have to take herbs or anything like that when you have the right food. So that's what we'll be discussing today. So let's ask God for His grace for all of us to come in with an open mind, ready to learn and ready to apply. And I ask for grace for myself to remove my arrogance, my ego, and be a vessel for your benefit. So without anything further, let's get straight into the show. Cheryl X, thank you for coming in. So I first want to mention just briefly that, of course, there are many different diets out there. I am not going to get into talking about any of them, but of course, if you all have questions, I will answer those, and we're going to try to cover this all in an hour. But if you have questions and we need to go a little further, we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure you guys have the answers, so that you can move into your new year and have the type of ammunition to produce the type of health that you want to see. So I want to first re-mention to those who may be new is that I have been practicing medicine starting January of 2020. It will be 25 years. Excuse me. And 7 years into practicing, after I finished my residency program, I read How to Eat to Live, and it changed everything about me. So the majority of what I'll be talking about, I shouldn't say that, yeah, majority of what I'll be talking tonight is going to be from How to Eat to Live. Aaliyah and April Muhammad, thank you for coming in. So that's what today's program is: optimal vegetarianism, based in the book How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we're going to discuss some scientific things first so that we can get into why what he said was so amazing. So let's just get started, all right? So the first thing that I wanted to point out is, you go on the internet and there are a lot of articles about a lot of different things. Shaniqua, thank you for coming in. But this is something I think that we have to start to wrap our minds around when we're thinking about our health. It says most studies have found a combination of bone health nutrients to be superior to any single nutrient alone. Now, what does that mean? That means that, a lot of us, when we're looking for optimal health, I would say that most people out here that are trying to do something better are looking for optimal health, right? But if you go to an herb shop, or you go to a vitamin shop, or you go to any type of place that's selling you products, you have to ask yourself, and you have to come to a conclusion: do these people have my health as their primary function, or is it selling me a product? Because what this study is talking about, as far as the bones are concerned, are all the different things that are associated with bone health. And so let's take a quick look at that. Shirley X says, what is a balanced vegetable diet? We're going to get into all of that very specifically in just a minute. Okay, I just want to show a few things, and then we're going to get into that specifically. So let's get back to this statement here. It says magnesium, very important with bone health, assists in the activation of vitamin D, which we're going to get into a little more in just a minute, which helps regulate calcium and phosphate homeostasis to influence the growth and maintenance of bones. All of the enzymes that metabolize vitamin D seem to require magnesium, which acts as a cofactor in enzymatic reaction to the liver and the kidneys. Now, so what they're saying is that you can't take a vitamin D tablet and not get some magnesium or calcium and phosphate, right? So we look at these, the magnesium, vitamin D, phosphate, calcium are all necessary nutrients in order to make your bones work correctly, as well as some other things. And so if you go to a store and they give you a calcium tablet, how can a calcium tablet work when calcium doesn't work by itself in any aspect of the body? So here, when you look at this here, I know it's kind of a busy slide. Can you see? There it is. So here we have the sun, of course, is affecting the skin and food so that we can get vitamin D. So we eat vitamin D, and it says vitamin D2 and D3 there, but my understanding is that when you eat it, it's in the vitamin D1 phase. After it hits the liver, it becomes vitamin D2. After it hits the kidney, it becomes vitamin D2. That's a little change from the liver. And then the sun, through the skin, activates it to vitamin D3. It's the most active form of vitamin D. Now, this is a busy slide, but the point that I really just want you to get to look at is this here. Calcium homeostasis. So you cannot have your calcium in your body doing well without the parathyroid gland, which I mentioned last week. It sits behind the thyroid gland. And you have magnesium, as I just finished mentioning, phosphate, calcium, vitamin D. All of these things work together to do what? Regulate blood pressure, make sure all your blood vessels are doing well, take care of your glucose metabolism, your immune function, and your muscles. So it does all of these things. So the point that I'm getting to, D. Kiki, thank you for coming in, is that, you know, we can't have optimal health by doing things outside of how God planned them. So I know this is a lot of scientific information, and I'm not really interested in you all knowing all the scientific information, but I want to show some in-depth things about the body today so we understand why we're eating. When you eat your food, you want your food to be able to go into the body so that these things that we just finished talking about are going to be taken care of, right? That's the purpose of it. So when we get to a place where you have, like a lot of times on social media, I'll see these posts that say, if your energy is low, you might be deficient in such and such, such, such. Or if you have fatigue, you might have a deficiency in such, 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 such. Well, I really want to disabuse us of this marketing trick, because that's really what it is. Most, I would say probably high 90% of the posts on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube about health are trying to sell you a product. And you have to be able to defend yourself against these marketing ploys. See, as I just finished mentioning, if we're going to have a discussion about vitamin D or calcium or phosphate or magnesium, somebody may tell you, well, if your such and such is not working well, you might need magnesium. But magnesium does nothing in the human body by itself. Calcium doesn't work by itself. Vitamin D doesn't work by itself. Sodium doesn't work by itself. All of these things work in systems, and that's why I'm showing these slides and giving you a little scientific background, because ultimately it's your responsibility, right? So you have to know how to keep from falling into these people's tricks. So again, we're going to get into a little science here of the kidney that has to deal with our sodium and water. Now, why am I going here? Because I'm sure most of us have this idea that salt is bad for us. And salt is not bad for us. Salt is very good for us. As a matter of fact, we can't live without salt. I'm about to prove it. I'm about to show you some intricacies of the body and how important salt is. But you have to do the right salt. You can't do that typical salt like we have in most of our homes, that sodium chloride with iodine. No, you have to do salt, sea salt, which has all of the nutrients in it that your body needs. We're going to get to a periodic table in a few minutes so I can show you all a little more specific about that. But let's talk about this salt. So here it is that your kidney produces that substance called renin. The liver produces angiotensin. Both of these are substances, natural substances that we produce every day in the body that help regulate your blood vessels. So if you need more blood flow to the lungs, they'll open up and send the blood to the lungs. If you need less, they'll pull it back, send it somewhere else. So just making a long story short, this whole system is involved in what? Telling our body how much sodium to keep in the body and how much water to keep in the body versus how much we need to put into the toilet. That's what the system is about. So this sodium that you see there, that's sodium and that's water, right? But specifically in the human body, when we get down to the cells, things that we can't see, look at this. You have a sodium calcium exchanger. So every time a sodium moves somewhere, calcium moves somewhere. And you see over here, every time 3 sodium move, 2 potassium move. So this whole system, there is no way for you to have optimal health by following people that want to sell you a product. So you take a calcium tablet, and you take this tablet, they tell you that the sodium is bad for you. No, these systems work together. We need them, but we have to have the right things. And that's why we're discussing optimal vegetarianism today, because I'm going to try to give you information on how you can do this, and you never need a supplement. You don't ever need to go and purchase something from somebody who is telling you that if you have this type of a problem with your body, come get such and such. If you have, skin issues, come buy it. No. What we're going to talk about today is how you solve all of these problems with the food. Because as intricate as those systems are that I just finished showing you, God has already produced everything we need for that. So we never need to go to any store and buy anything from anybody when we can get what God gave us that will work better. Now here's a Krebs cycle. What does it say? Sequence of reactions in living cells that generate energy to a process of aerobic respiration, meaning aerobic breathing oxygen takes place in the mitochondria, consuming oxygen, producing carbon dioxide and water as waste products, and converting ADP to energy-rich ATP. So this is one of the major sources of how we produce our energy. And here's just another, again, I don't want you all to know all of this kind of stuff, not even try to understand it all. I just want to show that up here you see coenzyme Q, sulfur, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen. Very important in this system of how we produce energy in the body. So if you go to a store and they say, to improve your energy, you need to take coenzyme Q. Coenzyme Q doesn't work by itself. Coenzyme Q works in this whole intricate system that God put together. So wouldn't God know how to put the right things in the body in the right format in order to take care of some intricate things like this? That's the only reason I'm showing you this stuff. Not for, again, not, I'm not trying to act like I'm smart, and I'm not trying to, do anything to anybody except just to understand how intricate this body is, how great it works with all these systems working together, just like the organs. So just another system here. This is called the electron transport chain. This is the other major aspect of how we improve our energy. And so when you look at this right here, you see the hydrogen molecules up there, and you see over here where it produces water, H2O, hydrogen, oxygen, and these things right here. Don't worry about those. Those are it's just a system by which we produce our energy, right? And so when we look at all of these, you're looking at the periodic table of elements. 118 different elemental. This is the smallest that you can get. These are elements at their basic, as far basic as you can get, right? And so when we look at these, you need a lot of sodium, a lot of magnesium, a lot of potassium, a lot of calcium, a lot of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, a lot of chloride. You need a lot of these things up here at the top. You don't need a lot of these things at the bottom. A lot of these things at the bottom are metals and other substances in the earth that make up everything that we see. We need a lot of these things in very small amounts. I read an article this week that was talking about colloidal silver. And they were talking about how good colloidal silver is on helping destroy pathogens in the body, like viruses, bacteria, fungus, all these type of things. They talked about needing less than 1/1,000,000% in order to have a very good immune system at killing things when it comes in the body. So that is a very small amount. So when you're eating the right food and you're putting salt in your water to hydrate yourself and the right type of salt on your food, there is no such thing as salt is bad for you. Bleach salt. I did a program on milk, so if you all want to see some specifics, Go back and check that out because I showed the right type of salt, and I talked about how a lot of the white foods have been denatured, bleached. That's why they're white. They have no nutrients. So if you're putting that in your body, you're not going to have optimal health. You need everything, all of those 118 elements, some in large amounts, some in small amounts, and that's what we're getting into today, okay? We're talking about this optimal health and how do we get it. So one more thing. This is the colors of foods and what phytonutrients. See, we have to make sure that we are keeping our mind in the positive place, right? And I'm not really interested in you all learning these either. I just want to show that when you eat red foods, these beautiful words up here, lycopene, ellagic acid, quercetin, hesperidin, anthocyanidins, you don't have to worry about what they mean. Just understand that this is what God put in the food. No man can make anything better than God. There's no place that you can go and buy something in a bottle that's going to do something better than these. So it's very important to eat fruit because of these, right? Purple, resveratrol, anthocyanidins, just like that, right? Red and the purple have phenolics and flavonoids. Very, very, very healthy substances that come out of fruits and vegetables. The green, you got lutein, zeaxanthin, isoflavones, isothiocyanates, sulforaphanes. In your white food, you got allicin, quercetin, indole glucinolates. In your orange and yellow, beta carotene, lutein, zeaxanthin, hesperidin. All great foods. And what is the most important thing that we have to have with all of this is some positive thinking. Now, I don't really want to go in any depth on this. I just wanted you to see that. I just put in there positive thinking and health, as you can see. And look at that, 267 million results. So there's got to be a lot of information out here about what positive thinking does to help benefit you. If you're not thinking correctly, if you're not thinking healthily, then your body is going to follow along with that. It's very, very important for us to think very healthy. Think positive about ourselves, okay? So here's what I'm going to do at this point. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about some statements that are made in How to Eat to Live. This wonderful book right here. If you don't have one, you should get one because this is the place that I learned how to get optimal vegetarianism. Okay, so we're going to look at a few pages in here. And what you can do is when you get this information, you'll start to just be able to yourself say what other things that you have heard of out there, or maybe even that you're practicing, that may not necessarily be the best for you. So let's get started with this, and then we're going to get into the specifics of what a optimal vegetarian diet is, okay? You guys have any questions as I'm moving along, let me know, and I will answer them. But we're going to get to your question, Shirley X, in just a minute. So here we go. We must look at these words. This is page 25, and everything is going to come out of book 2. Look at these words and teachings of how to eat to live in a more serious way. This is why we suffer so much sickness and death. It is because we do not take how to eat to live in a more serious way. There is no common sickness. This is what I want us to pay attention to. There is no common sickness that cannot be healed by proper eating of the right foods. Eating of the proper foods, which has all of that stuff we just finished talking about, the vitamin D, the nutrients, and all the things that we need for the body to operate correctly is in the food in the right way that God put it together, not in some laboratory. It didn't come from somebody that's trying to make a lot of money. D. Kiki says we must also stop ingesting fluoride as well. Absolutely. Yeah, we actually talked about fluoride last week's program, and that was the estrogen assault. Actually, the last 2 weeks, it was the estrogen assault part 1 and part 2. I did discuss that for you, but thank you for that comment, D. Kiki. What's next? Page 40. By eating one meal a day, we're talking about adults, some chronic diseases will vanish in a few years as they fail to get the poison that will keep them alive. Sometimes they vanish within a few months if you eat the right foods and eat only one meal a day or every 2 days. Try it for yourselves. The first time I heard somebody say something about eating that far apart, the first thing that I said out of my mouth was, I would die if it took me that long to eat, but I'm living proof that Now that I'm eating once every other day, that's not true, right? So here we go. Page 63. To eat meat is against our life and shortens the span of our life. We eat meat because it is a habit from childhood, but if we eat meat only once a day or every other day or twice a week, it will not be so hard on our digestion. It won't shorten our lives as fast as eating it 2 or 3 times a day. Beef is hard on our digestion. It is too tough and coarse. So I wanted to just say that we're discussing optimal vegetarianism, but I want everybody to understand, if you're still eating meat, don't beat up on yourself. This is not a beat down, make anybody feel bad type of show. This is so that you can understand how to manage yourself in the direction of becoming a vegetarian. Why? Because vegetarianism is the best. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Meat is very difficult for the body to digest. It is not good to eat meat. It shortens your lifespan. It gets you faster aging. So we want to decrease our meat. But if you're eating meat, when we get towards the end of the program, I'm going to talk about how to start going in the direction of optimizing your health. And that's what you have to understand. It is, if you are a meat eater, you are setting yourself up for some problems. So a goal, I think everybody should have a goal of getting to vegetarianism, but that doesn't mean that we're all going to get there at the same time. Take your time, understand, learn, and go in the direction that makes sense for you. And don't try to do it on somebody else's plan. Don't try to do it because somebody made you feel bad. Don't try to do it because of any other pressures. Do it because you know it's good, and take your time and get there. Miriam Muhammad, thank you for coming in. I hope that makes sense, because I don't want any meat eaters to feel bad about the fact that we're talking about optimal vegetarianism. But there's the statement by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, do not be a meat consumer, be a vegetarian. This is the best menu for our health. So it is and should be a plan for anybody that plans on living for a long time to plan on becoming a vegetarian. Okay? All right, and so a couple of things that we shouldn't be doing: beans that cattle should eat. And understand that we as black people, and most of the beans that we eat and we think are healthy, came from our times as slaves. We didn't have anything else. Slave master took what they wanted, gave us the scraps, and we learned how to stay alive with that garbage. But beans that cattle should eat, and that is what they are made for and not for human consumption. Lima beans, butter beans, field peas, black-eyed peas, and even soybeans are not good for anything but shortening your life. Cornbread, half-done flour bread, and sweet potatoes all shortens your life. So all these sweet potato eaters and these people that are giving you these so-called good diets and they put sweet potatoes in it, you're not going to get good health from eating sweet potatoes. Not good for any human to take as food. White potatoes do very well, but they produce too much starch, which would add fat, and too much fat shortens the life. This, I want you fat readers to remember, that your rosy fat does not mean long life. It means short life to you. Stay away from eating cornbread. It is too rough for the stomach. It wears out the stomach like sand grinds away delicate rug on your floor. So we got to understand that a lot of the foods are promoted in these other diets. They won't be giving you any guarantees like this man gives you. We're going to get to some of those in just a minute. What page are we on? 73. Chicken is not good for us to eat, although we eat it. So he's giving us a, he's kind of giving us a compromise. I mean, not a compromise, but he's giving us a little allowance there. You know, he talks about chicken being very similar to a pig. They eat anything. They eat scraps. There's nothing positive about chicken and turkey. But yet most people, when they are considering improving their health, they go from what? You know, you don't ever hear me talk about pork, because I know everybody already knows that pork is horrible. So there shouldn't be anybody that needs any explanation. But if you do have any questions, let me know. We'll get to that at some other show. Today, I just want to explain that a lot of our habits are based in people making big business. So if you come away from lamb and beef and you go to chicken and turkey, that's going backwards, because a chicken and a turkey don't eat anything live. They eat dead insects and dead animals and dead material and worms and other things. If you wouldn't get on your hands and knees and eat that, then you shouldn't eat that animal. So there's nothing positive that you get out of eating chicken and turkey. There's no healing, nothing substantially good that comes out of that meat. Beef and lamb are better, cleaner meats. I'm not saying they're good for you to eat because they're very difficult to digest, but they have better oils. They have some things in it that will actually benefit the body, but you'll get nothing from chicken and turkey. But it was industry people, people with money, that made us think that chicken and turkey was good for us. But there's no health to that. If you like to eat it for taste, then do that, but it's not going to give you any benefit. So D. Kiki says, goat and lamb, good sources of meat we should eat. I think I just covered that. Joe, lion rules the jungle. Thank you for coming in, bro. Joseph Muhammad, thank you for coming in. Sean Reynolds, Muhammad. He was slowly but surely weaning us off of chicken. Absolutely. All of us should, as I said, should have a plan to eventually become vegetarians. It's the best thing for you, but don't get yourself caught up trying to do it at somebody else's pace. Figure out your own way. That's what I do. That's what I do, is help people come up with plans on how you improve your health. So if you need help, let me know. But let's move on to some more of these quotes, and then we can get to the specifics of what our diet should look like, okay? 77. Book 2, page 77, he says, go to the farm and try raising your own food or have collective farming. You see, I wrote right there, food co-op. So, again, you have to know where to get good foods, because the key to everything that is said in this book is that we're making good choices in what we eat. You can't just go and eat at restaurants and fast food places and not knowing what it is that you need to do correctly. You have to make the best choices. And so when I discuss how to find the best food, it's not necessarily at grocery stores. We should all be researching the food co-ops that are in our communities. There's a website, and I can put it as a link after the show so you all can check it out. That will actually, you can put your radius from where you live, and it'll tell you how many food co-ops are in a 10-mile, 20-mile, 30-mile radius from where you live. And you can start buying your food from co-ops, which are much more reasonable, and a lot of times they're done much more healthily. Now, you still have to ask questions. You can't just go trust anybody. You have to ask the right questions. Did you use any pesticides, any herbicides, any chemical fertilizers, any GMO stuff? If you're getting meat from these things, you want to make sure that they didn't use steroids or antibiotics and all these kind of, caging up of these animals. You don't want to eat that type of meat. But these are the type of questions that you have to ask when you go to these food co-ops, because you can't necessarily trust just walking in Whole Foods. A lot of people think that you can walk in Whole Foods and everything is good. Big lie. Whole Foods sold out, and now it's owned by Amazon. That's all about money. It's not about you anymore. Sprouts, they have some good stuff, but they have a lot of garbage in there as well. Trader Joe's in some parts of the country. So be very careful. Do your research. Do your diligence to make sure that the food that you're getting is the best quality, and make sure that you are not just paying for a name, because a lot of what's in Whole Foods sometimes is higher than other stores just because you're in an upscale neighborhood. But it's important for us as people, poor people, brown people, black people, you have to know that the best quality food is in the upscale, rich, white neighborhoods. That's fact. I've asked people that work in grocery companies and all that, and it's the true fact. The best food is not in the poor neighborhoods, so you have to do your diligence and prioritize your health and spend your money where it's most needed, and that is to keep you alive, right? Okay, let's finish with these quotes, and then we'll get into page 85. There are many doctors who will not agree with you on drinking a lot of raw juices, not even a lot of raw grape juice, orange juice, or any kind of fresh juice. It is too much for our stomachs. The vitamins in it are good for us, but there are other enemies in raw vegetables and fruit juices from the land where they were grown and from the insects that fed upon them. So, as I said in the beginning, as I go through this book, you're starting to see how my viewpoint, because of how this book changed everything that I did, and I've seen so many people heal from the suggestions in this book, that I don't connect myself with a lot of these so-called healthy things like juicing vegetables. I think that's a bad idea, period. But even juicing fruit is not good for you. It's too much. The body is used to putting something in the mouth, chewing it, swallowing it. The chewing process and the saliva that comes from your parotid gland and your submandibular glands prepares the food for the stomach. if that's not happening, the body is confused. The body is like, what is all of this stuff? I didn't chew anything. I didn't swallow anything. I didn't prepare anything. What is all this that's coming down there? It's very confusing. Plus, every good food has some toxins in it. So if you eat, if you drink a lot of fruit juice and vegetable juice, you are inundating your body with some overwhelming stuff that your body has to adjust to. And it's just not going to benefit you the best long term to have these type of things happening to your body. All right? A little raw salad is good for us. I'm sorry, that is page 86. A little raw salad is good for us if eaten along with cooked food, even if we eat it daily, but do not make meals of such raw salad. So, you got some of these quotes, so let's get back to the quotes. None of us should suffer with sugar diabetes if we eat natural food. Because the sugar in natural food is not enough to poison our blood with sugar. It is the sugar that is manufactured by commercializers on sweets that causes the dreadful disease of sugar diabetes. All sufferers from sugar diabetes should abstain from eating sugar after they learn they are sufferers of diabetes, and they should eat the natural food that Allah has placed in the earth for us without addition of sugar. So again, when we're talking about optimal vegetarianism, we're really discussing foods and vegetarianism. I just stopped eating meat. No. Making good choices is very important, because a lot of people that stop eating meat replace meat with a lot of processed foods, baggage food, canned stuff and things of that nature, and that's when you really, I have a connection, so hold on a second, let me move to another spot. So what they make a lot of decisions to eat processed foods, and they're not good for you, and so that's why we're having this discussion today, right? So next is 96. No nuts whatsoever should be eaten. Allah taught me that they take away 5 years of your life every time you eat them, and stop eating that concrete like peanut butter. So, there are a lot of people out here that promote eating nuts that are good for your health. And as I've talked about before, you can eat your favorite nut, look in the toilet over the next couple of days, and you'll see them come out in the stool. And so that definitely is proof that we cannot digest them, right? Page 151. High blood pressure, diabetes, colds and fevers, ailments of the heart, headaches, stomach aches, and all types of ulcers can be cured and vanish under the right food and time that we should eat. So again, the claims that he makes are amazing. And, if you can think about the fact that I'm just recently out of medical school and residency program when I'm reading this book. And a lot of the things that people told me that you had to take medications for the rest of your life, he's saying that you can cure them. And here's a statement that I've never heard anybody else claim. Will allow us to live a great long while, even to 140 years and more, if we eat it once every other day and every 3 days instead of one meal every day. There are not very many people telling you that you can live to 140 years or greater. So this has got to be something that is definitely giving us some hope, right? Because he's not talking about living to 140 in a wheelchair or in a bed. He's talking about being alive and moving around and doing the things that you want to do every day. Okay, page 167. He says, pay no attention to your doctor saying that you need 6 to 8 glasses of water with 1 meal per day. What he is telling you goes for 3 meals per day. All of their medical teachings and administering is based upon a patient who eats 3 meals per day. And I also will add that, it makes no sense to tell somebody, you got a person that's as big as Shaq versus somebody that's 5'1" to drink the same amount of water. No. You have to drink the amount of water that it takes for your body to be healthy. And that's different for every person. If you're a person that sits inside versus works outside in the heat, or even in the cool, it takes more water in that situation. Let's get to the last couple of pages, and we're going to get into the specifics of the diet, okay? This is one that, of course, I'm sure a lot of you will understand why a lot of these diets out here that talk about this do not eat leaf vegetables, such as collard greens, which some of us have taken for a diet. Do not eat a lot of green vegetables anyway. Eat the white heads of vegetables, like cauliflower, white heads of cabbage. And then down here he says what? The less you eat, the longer you live. And so when we go back, again, I apologize for the disconnection problems, but when we go back to some of those intricacies that I was talking about in the beginning of the program, they are very, very specific in how all of those works. All those specific things and all those coenzymes and all the vitamins and the nutrients that work with that, very specific. And the food has exactly the right processes for what God wants us to happen in the body. And that's why it makes it so important when somebody says something like the less you eat, the longer you live, because when you put the right food, it goes in and does the good things, and then the body can use that energy that it gets that we were talking about in those different systems, and that's how you can live in between meals, because you've got the right things. So if we're getting the right things, we don't have a problem making it to another day. Okay? 2 more pages. Fish is a better food. If you eat the better fish, the flesh of the fish comes out of another world. This makes it better for us in this world. Any animal or beast that is out here eating the same food that we eat, we should not eat him, because his flesh is too hard for our flesh to digest. All of our food in the way of meat should come from the sea, ocean, river, or lakes, and not from the 4-footed animals that are walking around here and eating almost the same things that we are eating. So again, I mentioned that for all of you that may not necessarily be vegetarians yet. As you start to make your transition into vegetarianism, which I already mentioned is the best thing to do, change from the chicken and the turkey and the beef and the lamb to fish. It's a much better food. Now, you can't eat it every day. You shouldn't eat it more than a couple of times a week, as he mentioned earlier about eating meat, because the seas and the oceans and the rivers and the lakes these days in modern times, 2019 going into 2020, are very toxic. And so you don't want to put these high toxic metals in your body, even if they're wild caught. That's one thing I got to mention. You should never eat farm-raised fish. That's totally abnormal. They don't get to cleanse themselves as they are when they're swimming in the ocean or a lake. So stick with wild-caught fish, but you shouldn't be doing that more than probably 2 or 3 times in a week at the most. Cortez Morez Hopkins, thank you for coming in. What is a good weight loss diet? I'm going to get to all that in just a minute. So thank you for the good question. I just got one more quote I got to do, and then we're going to get into the specifics of how to optimize your health, okay? And here it is. A man should chew his food, as many doctors teach us and agree with what is said here, until it slips away into the throat before swallowing. So again, for everybody that has come in after or has witnessed the little Wi-Fi issue I had, I'm going to put these videos together for YouTube so I can eliminate that. But for those who were at the beginning of the program, you saw some of the intricate systems I put up of the body. And we are talking about things that we can't see with the naked eye. And so it's very important for us when we put food in our mouth to chew it very well, and to chew it to a point where it's very easy to swallow, and not swallowing big old lumps of food that takes a lot longer and a lot more difficult for your body to digest. Okay, so that's a very important aspect of optimal health. So let's get into the specifics, and then I'll get to you all's questions, okay? So number one, when it comes to putting together your optimal vegetarianism, is you have to start here. You have to start with your thoughts, positive thoughts. You have to start understanding that your body has the ability to heal itself. You have to also understand that you do not have a genetic dispensation to diseases. We have been lied to when we're told that high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, heart disease, kidney problems, all these things are genetic. They're not. We have bad habits. So the one thing that I want to impress upon everybody the most is that when you look at your family and you see a grandmother, a grandfather, an uncle, aunts, mother, father, that his health is deteriorating, they're walking on a walker, or they're in a wheelchair, or they're in a bad health condition, what you have to come to conclusion in your mind is, well, they didn't know how to take care of their bodies. So what they taught you has to be incorrect. And so you have to start considering some of the things that I talked about today, and also consider what kind of changes you will make based on what I say today. But the first thing is to say to yourself, God didn't make you half-baked. He didn't make you with the potential of disease. He made you with the ability to live hundreds of years with no problems. That is the truth. I know a lot of us may have a difficult ability to conceptualize that because our families are so sick and people die so young, 60, 70, 80, already sick. But you have to conceptualize being able to live a lot longer than that healthy, but it's going to take making some changes. But it starts here. You have to make the decision that you're going to put the work in to make yourself your own God doctor. Right? I've been doing this, I said starting next year to be 25 years of practicing medicine, the last 16 years through this book, How to Eat to Live. And I've seen so many people heal the problems that were so-called familial things. So if the problem is genetic, and you do something to change your diet and the problem goes away, that proves that it's not genetic. See, my nose is genetic. When people look at me and they sit and they knew my father, they'd be like, man, you look just like your daddy. Your head is shaped like your daddy. You walk like your daddy. Those are genetic things. But medical problems, we weren't born with genetic problems. We have the ability to keep it that way, but the way that we eat and the way that we don't know how to eat is really what causes us to eventually go down the same road that we see people before us. So Sky or Limit McPherson, so not eating green leafy foods doesn't contradict the chart you showed earlier with the different food color categorized? No, it doesn't. The food chart that and that's an excellent question. The food chart that I was showing was talking about the different colors and what type of phytonutrients that are in those foods. And that's something that I think is very important, because when you eat green leafy foods, you will notice, if you or anybody else on here has eaten them, that your stool will be green the next day or the next couple of days, right? If you eat turnip greens, mustard greens, spinach, the green aspect of cabbage, all those things you'll see in a stool. But why is it that when you eat asparagus or Brussels sprouts or okra, you don't see green in the stools? It's because we have the ability to break down some foods and some we don't. And so a lot of these so-called health gurus out here, they post these type of information that you can get all this good stuff from green leafy vegetables, because they can go in there and scientifically see that it's there. But if the green stuff comes out of your butt, then you notice that your body can't break that down because of the difference when you start comparing the foods that I'm going to mention in a few minutes that are good vegetables versus those green leafy ones. So that's a good question, and then let me know if I answered that for you. Aaliyah, what is the difference between LDL and HDL cholesterol? What foods will aid in reducing LDL cholesterol? What foods will aid in raising HDL cholesterol in our body? Those are excellent questions, Aaliyah. What I'm going to try to do is finish talking about these foods, and then I'm going to get to that. I'll get to that at the end, okay? D. Kiki says we must change our habits in order to change our lives. Absolutely. That's the biggest thing that we have to say in our minds, that we have the ability to have optimal health, and we have to do the work that it takes to get there. Okay, so the first one is correct thoughts. Get your mind focused on knowing that you can heal if you have a problem, and if you don't have a problem, that you can live for a long time without any problems. Dandelion is a great green leafy food. Well, that is something that I really don't think is the great. Green leafy foods are something that I don't promote because of what I just finished explaining. So correct thoughts, number one. Number two would be a kind of a threesome that I would call exercise, oxygen, and aromatherapy. It is very important for us to keep our bodies mobile. We weren't made to be sedentary people. So if you have a sit-down job and you sit down to drive to work and you sit down to drive home, and then when you get home you sit down again, your body is not being used in the way that it's supposed to be used. And so it's going to deteriorate physically over the years. And so physical deterioration as well as dietary deterioration, really speeds up the whole disease process, and people will really be just like we just described, right? Watching a family member start walking on a walker, and then they get to a point where they're in a wheelchair, and then they get to a point where they can't even get out of the bed. That's a deterioration that we can eliminate, and it first starts with exercise. Now, why did I include exercise, oxygen, and aromatherapy? Because, as I mentioned in last week's program, and for anybody that is just new coming in, these programs are all taped on my Facebook channel, The Ultimate Wellness Group, and they're also going to be on my YouTube channel, The Ultimate Wellness Group. So don't worry about it if you have missed these last ones that I'm going to be mentioning. But I did, in the last 2 weeks, I did the estrogen assault part 1 and part 2. And I talked about the chemtrails. There are things in the chemtrails that are really affecting us. But at the end of the day, we don't worry about the chemtrails. There's nothing you can do about that. What you can do is on the days that you don't see chemtrails, make sure you do something outside. And you breathe in that air when you're walking around trees and walking around grass, because that's what produces your oxygen, the trees, right? And the aromatherapy, a lot of people can buy products and buy these infusers, and people will sell you essential oils and all these things to put in your house. Well, you can get that out there by walking around the trees and the plants that have the aroma. So you get a real aromatherapy that does help improve and heal your body. And so you want to go outside and get that. Be part of that natural way to keep your exercise, oxygen, and aromatherapy up. Okay, let me see a couple of statements here. Sky or Limit McPherson, you said, yes, thank you. Does kale also fall into leafy foods we shouldn't eat? Absolutely. Kale is probably the worst one of all of the green leafy foods because it's the most rough. Tawana, Optimal Vegetarian. Okay. Walia, thank you for coming in. Are almonds considered a nut or a fruit? I put almonds in the classification of nuts because of the type of information that I've read, that they have the same type of anti-nutrients that all the other nuts have. Willie Chew, will you suggest a typical meal that you eat in a day? Absolutely. When I finish going through these different sections, I'm going to talk about what my typical diet looks like, and I'm going to explain why I believe I'm giving a good, not only reasonable, but a realistic ideology of optimal vegetarianism, okay? So let me get into the third phase. The first one was correct thoughts, right? Second one is exercise, oxygen, and aromatherapy, getting outside and getting some of that nature that God put out here for us. The third one will be water and hydration. So water and hydration are different things. Can you hear that? So if I take this bottle right here and I drink this water, that's drinking water, correct? But when I want to hydrate, the word hydrate is water with other substances. So what I do to hydrate is I put sea salt, Celtic sea salt, which has all the nutrients on that periodic table that I mentioned earlier. I put some salt in here, shake it up, and drink it. Or I'll put some salt in my hand, lick it, and drink it. Okay? So that is how you hydrate. Not with Gatorade, not with Powerade. Those things are made in a chemical laboratory, the same as I just finished talking about those when you go to the GNC or the vitamin shop or places like that, and you want to go buy a calcium tablet. That's made in a chemical laboratory. But when you get it from the foods that I'm getting ready to mention in a few minutes, you're getting it in an exact preparation of how it's supposed to be. So when you drink that sea salt and water, you're getting all of the nutrients in the way that they were managed in nature. So it's going to be very good for you, okay? Spring water is the best to drink. And, of course, the optimal way is to put it in glass. It's very difficult these days. But we're going to get to how you solve that problem, too. Don't get yourself, crazy about plastic bottles and getting the dioxin and things like that. Yes, all those things are happening in this modern society. But at the end, we're going to talk about how we eliminate all those things and don't have to worry about that either. Okay? But water in glass is the best. Now, a lot of people have discussions about purified water, reverse osmosis, distillation, and alkaline water. I have talked about these in previous programs. Again, like I said, I'm going to put up these links so that you can go back and check out all the ones that I mentioned during this program. But just quickly, Purified water, you never know what the source is. And most of the time, tap water is a source. And based on my research, when you add heat to tap water, some of the chemicals are eliminated, but a lot of the chemicals are made worse. So heating water and purifying tap water isn't always the best. A purifier, a filtering system is made to filter what they make it to filter. But that doesn't mean that it's going to get everything out of the water that is bad for us. So we should be trying to get spring water. Reverse osmosis, that's usually in a machine. Distillation is usually some type of machine. Alkalinized water is when they electrolyze water, putting electricity to it, which kills everything live. All of these waters are not optimal for the body. The body, when you drink water, should have small amounts of nutrients in it like silica and other things that are on the periodic table, very few. But the way God makes the water, as we talked about everything else, you can't go to a GNC or a vitamin shop and get a bottle of something or buy something from some herb person and it's going to be as good as what God made out there. It's just not going to happen. So we have to take our mind and say, what is the way, God made water on the planet? Rivers and lakes where the water is moving, underground aquifers where they get the water from the rocks have cleaned it and made and purified it. That's a natural process. All these other man-made things will never equal what God does. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. No plastic bottles. Yes, sir. The best we can do, though. How much extra sea salt to use in a liter bottle? That is only a question I could ask. It depends on the person's like health status. So I can give some generalities, but I have to make sure that the person isn't having any medical problems or anything that we have to be worried about. Corey Johnson, thank you for coming in. You said, what about pink Himalayan salt? Yes, pink Himalayan salt is not bad. Pink Himalayan salt is pink only because of the certain parts of the world that it comes from. And, you know, other colored salt, it just depends on what the soil is, where they get it from. So you just have to make sure that when you buy salt, it doesn't have any other ingredients in it. You want to make sure that it just says sea salt, and usually you can get some pretty good ones, okay? Khalif Muhammad, we are not to eat coconut. What are your thoughts on drinking coconut water? Well, there's a statement in book 1 of How to Eat to Live that says no walnuts, no peanuts, no coconut, period. So my personal thought is, I mean, I don't drink coconut water. I don't use coconut oil. I don't suggest coconut nothing. Amino acids, I don't do coconut, period. So that's my thought on coconut water. I don't suggest it. And the reason is because a coconut within itself, if you go to one of these islands and they bust that coconut oil, you start chewing it, it has the consistency of a nut, so it's very difficult to digest. And everything else in that nut class is very high in phytonutrients. And I believe that coconut is in the same class, so it's going to be very difficult for us, even if we're drinking the water, to get everything out of it because it's so high in anti-nutrients, so it's going to decrease your ability to absorb it. So let me know if I answered your question. Okay, how about if I use Himalayan pink salt with my water? Absolutely, yes, you can do that. Sharon Crockett, thank you for coming in. And you know, Sharon Crockett, you had asked me a question. I'm going to answer that. You asked about, I think, some cerebral calcification, and make sure I got that right if that's what you asked. And let me try to answer that before we get out of here, okay? Thank you, Khalif Muhammad. So first one was correct thoughts, right? Next, exercise, oxygen, aromatherapy, water, and hydration. Next is fruits. Now, going back to the slide that I showed in the beginning, where it showed the red foods and the orange foods, the yellow foods, the green foods, the purple foods, all of those different phytonutrients that I mentioned, as I said, I'm not interested in you all knowing all of those. That's not necessary to try to go and do all the research. That's my job to do that research. If you want to, it's good, but what I'm saying is that it's not even necessary for you to know. I wanted you all to know that because those are the things that you're getting when you eat a piece of fruit that came from a plant that God produced, right? So the first thing is that we don't want to eat GMO food. We don't want to eat food that has pesticides, herbicides, chemical fertilizers. So that means that you have to buy organic food. We have to prioritize our health and make our foods the best. Over and over and over and over again in the book How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he keeps saying the best of foods, the best of foods, the best of foods. In 2019, for a few more hours going into 2020, you cannot afford to not put organic food in your body because pesticides cause cancers, insecticides cause cancers, chemical fertilizers cause cancers. And if any of you want to prove that to yourself, go to your local Lowe's, Home Depot, or anywhere else and look at the pesticide, herbicide, and chemical fertilizer containers, whether it's a plastic canister or whether it's one of those heavy plastic bags. You look in there and it says on the package that it could potentially cause you cancer. You can't put that stuff in your body. So fruits, they need to have seeds. They have to be organic. And every time you eat a piece of fruit, you are literally putting many, many antioxidants in your body, which does what? Slows down the oxidation process, keeps you from aging. And then it has all of those, depending on the color, has those phytonutrients that I talked about at the beginning of the show. And phytonutrients go into your body and help you heal. Every time you eat a piece of organic fruit with seeds in them, you can guarantee yourself that something just got fixed in your body. You can guarantee that you just slowed down the aging process. So fruit is very important. Now, one caveat when it comes to fruit. You should not eat fruit with any of the other classifications of foods that I'm about to mention other than wheat bread and milk, because they digest similarly. But you don't want to eat fruits with vegetables, and you don't want to eat fruits with meats, and you don't want to eat fruits with beans. Why? Because fruit has a lot of sugar in it. Very good sugars, very healthy sugars. Don't let anybody tell you that fruit sugar is bad for you. Big lie. But when fruits are digested, they are digested very quickly. Most of you can even remember as we're talking that when you eat a piece of fruit, most fruit you start chewing and it's almost water before you swallow it. So it doesn't take a lot of digestion to break down your fruit. They're digested very quickly. Vegetables, beans, and other heavier foods take a lot longer, so that sugar's just basically just rotating in your stomach, being fermented, and that's how you get a lot of gas. So you don't want to really do fruits with other foods unless it's like you can do fruit smoothies in raw milk. But that's pretty much the only time I eat my fruit, by itself or in a smoothie. But I always try to do that an hour, hour and a half before I eat my regular meal. Okay? Sharon Crockett said coronary calcium on CT scan. Yes, okay, I'll get to that in a minute. The blessed diet plan for weight loss. Yes, sir, I'm going to get to that. And April Muhammad said with seeds, always. If you go to the store and you're going to buy fruit and it says seedless, the best thing to do is to put that back. Okay? So that's fruit. Let me know if you have any questions. Now, the next section is going to be vegetables, all right? So we got correct thoughts, exercise, oxygen, aromatherapy, getting outside in nature, water and hydration, knowing the difference and doing them both, fruit, and then vegetables. Now, what I can say over the last 16 years that I have been using How to Eat to Live as the foundation for how I help people is I've done a lot of research on the foods that he mentions in How to Eat to Live. I'm going to mention them to you, and what I can tell you is that these vegetables that I'm about to mention have the highest level of nutrients and are the best at supplying them in the format that we talked about earlier, right? So when we're talking about like your bone system, your bones are regulated not only by hormones, but what you eat. And you need to eat foods that have calcium, magnesium, phosphates, sodium, potassium, all these different things in, right? Remember in the beginning, I showed that little slide, and I can go back and show it to you in a minute, where you could see the calcium. There's 2 calciums that may go in this direction and a sodium goes that way. Or you might have 3 sodium go this way and 2 calciums come down, or 2 sodiums and 1 potassium. That's the way the body works. There's always this exchange mechanism. And so we always have to make sure the foods have the right balance of all these things in it. And the vegetables that I'm about to mention has that. Caveat for the vegetable, you always have to add heat to vegetables. So there may be some things where people call one or the other, like some people call tomatoes vegetables, some people call tomatoes fruits. So that's an argument that I really don't know how to solve. I know what I call fruits and I know what I call vegetables, but the vegetables I'm about to list are ones that we have to add some heat to in order for you to break down the anti-nutrients so that you can absorb your nutrients, okay? Eating raw vegetables is not good for you, all right? Now, that list is string beans, white cabbage. So when you go to the store and you get a cabbage and it has green leaves, you should peel as many of those off and get to the lighter part of the cabbage. That's the best. Red cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, corn. And we only eat corn in the milk stage, which is the very early stage of the corn becoming ripe. But once it starts to get older, it's very difficult for us to digest. So very early. Parsley, celery, cucumber, asparagus, eggplant, squash, okra, carrots, tomatoes, all peppers, onions, olives, radishes, garlic, Brussels sprouts. Now, spinach is one that he mentions, but he says a little bit of spinach. We shouldn't eat a lot of spinach because of what we said earlier, right? So let me just reverse and just say a little things. Green leafy vegetables are not the best for us because we don't have the ability to digest them. That's why they come out in the toilet. When we eat vegetables, the heat that we add to it, whether you put it in the oven and maybe bake it a little bit or saute it in your pan or broil your water and steam them, all of those destroy the bond that anti-nutrients have on the nutrients. So there are anti-nutrients. One system is called phytic acid and the other one is oxalic acid. I said that in one of my other programs. I'll remember what that is and I'll put it up as a link so you can check that one out. But when you add heat, it breaks those bonds that the anti-nutrients have on your nutrients. And so when you add heat to your vegetables, it allows for all those nutrients to be absorbed once you chew that well and then swallow that into your stomach and digest it, okay? So I hope that makes sense. So those are the vegetables. And I got to get to something in just a minute. So, but there's a question. Walia says, do you recommend eating fruit after dinner? No. I do not suggest eating fruit after dinner because when you eat the type of foods that I'm suggesting, navy beans and vegetables, that's going to take at least 5 or 6 hours to digest, depending on how much we eat and how they are prepared and all those type of things. And so when you sit down and you eat a meal in the evening time, 5, 6, 7, whatever time you have the ability to eat, by the time you finish digesting that food and absorbing it, you literally you probably won't even be awake. It's probably going to happen after you fall asleep. And so that's why I always suggest that people either eat their fruit an hour or hour and a half before their meal, or what people can do as they're working themselves from multiple meals to one meal a day, or working yourself from one meal a day to one meal every other day, you can eat like a typical meal on one day, and then the next day eat all fruit. And that will help you get to a point where you can start skipping those days. Excuse me, but fruit after a normal meal, no, I don't suggest that because it usually will give you a lot of gas. Sky McPherson says, I didn't hear mushrooms. Are they not good? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad doesn't mention mushrooms in How to Eat to Live. And I don't have a problem with mushrooms. My personal viewpoint is I don't eat mushrooms and I don't suggest mushrooms because of the way they grow. When you do research on plants and why they have the nutrients in them and how they're so good, it's because of their root structure and how they pull the nutrients from the soil. Well, mushrooms grow on top of the soil. And most of the time, a mushroom does grow when soil is nutritive and has a lot of good stuff in it. But from my personal viewpoint and my first personal studies, mushrooms do have some good qualities. I just don't promote it. So let me know if I answered your question. Walia, thank you for a good question. Khalif Muhammad, he says don't eat them. Could you let me know what you mean by that, Khalif Muhammad? So I want to just show you all something real quick that I just wrote down to make sure that I covered. These are the things, the major things that you want to get out of your foods. Fat, yes, we do need fat. Sugar, that's the fuel source of the body. Protein, we break those down in amino acids, very important all over the body. Vitamins, I listed them here, the B vitamins. B1, thiamine, B2 is riboflavin, B3 is niacin, B5 is pantothenic acid, B6 really doesn't have a name, B7 is biotin, B9 is folate, B12 is cyanocobalamin, and we also need A, D, E, and K. You got C, vitamin A, B, C, D, E, and K. A, D, E, and K are considered your fat-soluble vitamins, so when you eat foods that have these vitamins, you store them in your fat. And even thin people have some fat. B vitamins in your C are water soluble, so we can eat these and get these all the time, but when you have too much, you can urinate them right into the toilet. So I just wanted to show that because this is what we want out of our foods, okay? Thank you for the good question. It's mentioned in How to Eat to Live that we should not eat mushrooms. It's in the book. No, sir. I have never, well, let me not say no, sir. I have not seen mushroom mentioned in book 1 or book 2. So if you're saying it's in there, I'm going to have to go back and look again. But I just finished going all the way through book 2 today. And I don't believe that mushrooms are mentioned in book 1 or book 2. So if you have that page number for me, please let me know. Okay? Okay, so I don't want to do that. So we got correct thoughts. Exercise, oxygen, aromatherapy, water, hydration, fruit, vegetables, and now we're getting to which should be a staple of all of our diets. And the reason why I consider this system the optimal vegetarianism is because a lot of us are concerned about the toxins that are in our environment. And that is a good concern. But I don't want anybody to be concerned to a point where you fear. That's where we start taking our thoughts and not allowing them to be good and start becoming negative. Oh, okay, so it's connected. I'm having Wi-Fi problems again, y'all. But so I don't want us to get into any fear factor, okay? Navy beans is the only bean that I know of that has a very exact replica of the human body. So when you break a navy bean down into the percentage of fat, the percentage of protein in the form of amino acids, and sugar, it's the same percentage of the human body. That's not my mistake. That's why the bean is so great. Now, the other thing that's so great about the navy bean is it has a substance called glutathione in it. Glutathione, Glutathione, that is the most powerful antioxidant and detoxifier that we know of in the human body. It's made by the liver, but it is in good amounts in navy beans and in milk from a cow. So those are two things that help go into our body, and as I said earlier, antioxidants slow down the aging process, and detoxifiers, the only two foods that I know of that will supply great nutrition and pull toxins out of the body at the same time, are navy beans and milk that comes from the cow. Okay, so that's why my next list after the first ones is navy beans, milk, and bread. Wheat bread. I'm not talking about any type of bread. Wheat bread, not whole grain bread, but wheat bread. And the first ingredient in your wheat bread should be whole ground wheat flour. Most of the wheat breads in the store are fake because the first thing you see there is what? Enriched or fortified wheat flour or bleached wheat flour. You can't trust those type of foods. Anytime you go into a store and you buy something that says enriched or fortified, the likelihood is that those nutrients and that substance was made in a chemical laboratory, and you can't trust that. That's why we're having the conversation of optimal vegetarianism. Because if you believe in God, then you have to put God first, and that means you have to put in your body what God put on this planet that's best for you. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so navy beans, milk from a cow that has not been pasteurized and homogenized, and I'm in the process of doing some research on exactly what is the best format for us to do that. Should we heat the milk? Should we not heat the milk? well, we know for sure we shouldn't homogenize it, but you guys give me a couple of months to do this research and I will give those answers. Now, what is so great about navy beans, milk, and whole wheat bread? Glutathione I mentioned. They all are very good at supplying us with amino acids. Amino acids go in the body and help us build proteins, help build tissues. I meant to mention that for vegetables as well. Fruits are good at antioxidants and giving those phytonutrients so we can slow aging and heal. The vegetables are usually good for building the body back up. It's a good source of nutrients to help build the tissues of the body. So when we're breaking down toxins and we're doing a lot of physical things, you actually break some of the body down and the vegetables help build it up. Navy beans, the milk, and the whole wheat bread do that as well through the amino acids. And there are a lot of nutrients and a lot of vitamins in that. Okay? Lastly, Aloe sounds, you say A2 cow, question mark, let me know what you mean by that. And then lastly, what produces your optimal vegetarianism as an adult is fasting. Once you get yourself to a place where you're eating the right type of foods and purchasing the right type of foods, you can make a different statement than most people. And I just want to show this real quickly. A lot of times when you read articles about other type of diets, they use words like mitigate, right? Make less severe, serious or painful, to lessen force or intensity, to make milder or more gentle. And then, of course, a lot of people hear this when they're dealing with cancer remission. It's diminution of seriousness or intensity of the disease or pain, a temporary recovery. Well, I'm here to tell you that the best thing that I've ever seen ever happen in people that gives them healing is fasting. Once you put the right nutrients into the body, all the systems that are in the body, all the intricate systems, all the organs working together. The organs are not individual things. Every organ is leaning and relying on another organ for something. And so it's a whole system that works together as one. And when you give that body the nutrients that it needs and then you give it the rest, we get a lot of healing. That's why when we wake up in the morning, we have something in our eye, right? We have to urinate. Most of the time we have to defecate. And let me make this statement real quick. The way that you can determine how well your body is doing is by paying attention to it and listening to how it talks to you. If you eat one meal a day, you should have one bowel movement a day. If you're eating 3 meals a day, you should have 3 bowel movements a day, because that's the way the system works. If that's not happening, something is wrong with your system and you have to start working to try to correct that problem, okay? But these are the things: looking at your eyes in the morning, looking at the way you sleep and how you feel in the morning, noticing how your breath smells or how your mouth tastes when you wake up in the morning, where you have to blow your nose in the morning. How does your defecation smell? Does it float? Does it sink? Does it fall apart? All of these things I've mentioned in previous broadcasts, but all of these things are how you evaluate that your health is doing well and going in the right direction. You have to be able to make these type of communications or listen to these communications that your body is giving you. Your skin health, how vibrant is it? How much do you have to concern yourself with putting something on your skin to moisturize your skin? But when you're eating correctly and you have adequate water, healthy water, then you don't need a lot of lotions and things like that on your skin. Okay? Raphael, Larisha, did you already talk about raw milk fasting while breastfeeding and pregnant? No, I haven't, but I do have something that I can say about that in just a minute. Loey Sound says, should we drink the milk from a 2 casein cow instead of an A1? I heard there's a big difference, and I'm just trying to get some answers. I'm a bit confused. Well, you're talking about something that's outside of my knowledge as well, because I don't know anything about an A2 casein cow versus an A1. But thank you for the question. My plan is that the next time I come on here, I'll be able to answer your question. So let me get to the questions that were asked. The first one was Aaliyah. You asked about the HDL, LDL, and let me see. What is the difference between LDL and HDL cholesterol? What foods will aid in reducing LDL cholesterol? What foods will aid in raising the HDL cholesterol in the body. Okay, excellent question. First of all, the difference between LDL and HDL cholesterol, the L and the H stand for low and high. So there's low density lipoprotein and high density lipoprotein. The LDL is what takes the fat from after we break down our food and puts it into the body. The HDL, or the high density lipoprotein, is what takes fat from our body and helps us get rid of it. So those are the differences. I don't want to go into a whole bunch of scientific differences, but those are the basic differences. What foods will aid in reducing LDL cholesterol? Everything we talked about today will help aid in lowering your LDL cholesterol. And by the way, those of you who cook, the good oils to use would be safflower, olive, avocado, and sunflower oil. Did I make that? Olive, avocado, safflower, olive oil, avocado oil, safflower oil. What's the other one? Sunflower oil. Okay. Huh? Yeah, I got to do some more research on grapeseed. But those are your better oils to cook with, and it's good to cook with butter as well. Not margarine. That's very hydrogenated, which is very bad for the body. You don't want to use country crock and almost tastes like butter, all those type of things. Those are very, very, very bad for the body, and those will increase your LDL and clog up your arteries. So you don't want to do those things. I wanted to mention that because we're talking about this cholesterol thing. What foods will aid in raising HDL cholesterol in the body? The only thing that I know that raises your HDL is activity. The more active you are, the more physical, demanding your physical reality is every day, the higher your HDL. And fruits and vegetables can actually help raise your HDL as well. Okay, so let me know if I answered your question, Aaliyah. Let me get back to I think there was somebody else to answer the question in the beginning. I said I was going to answer, right? Oh, no, somebody asked about weight loss. Okay, so I'm going to get to that in just a second, okay? Let me see. You said, already talked about raw milk fasting while breastfeeding and pregnant. Okay, so there's a letter that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote as a supplement to How to Eat to Live. And he talked about the fact that when a woman is breastfeeding and pregnant, she is not forced to eat one meal a day. She can eat one meal a day if she wants to, but he suggested that a pregnant woman and a breastfeeding woman eat at least twice a day. And so he also mentions in How to Eat to Live that we could drink milk from a cow and the breast of the woman will change it, alter it, and make it right for the baby. So either way, a pregnant or a nursing mother is okay to drink the milk. I just don't think that we should be doing any type of fasting during pregnancy or breastfeeding because it takes a lot of energy for both of those processes, producing a baby and producing the milk for a baby. Very high metabolism that a woman's body is going through, so she really needs to be feeding herself in order to keep up with that demand. So I usually suggest any mother that is pregnant and or breastfeeding that she should not try to do any type of fasting. She should be trying to eat the foods that we talked about today in the right amounts to keep her healthy until that baby is about a year, because usually by the time a baby is in between 9 months to a year, they start eating some solid food, and so their amount of breastfeeding starts to decrease, and that's when a mother can start to decrease how much she eats, or she can start, working on, whatever she wants to do. But usually that breastfeeding by itself will cause her to lose all the weight. So let me know if I answered that question. Alois House, thank you. And again, I'm going to do some more research, and I definitely will get back. Where do you get your milk from? Right now, we get our milk from this dairy farm in, man, I would forget the name. Let me think of the name, and I'll let you know. Maxine Bland, thank you for coming in. How about grapeseed oil? Yeah, I mentioned grapeseed oil last week. I have to do a little more research, and the reason is because If you all notice, I just mentioned about eating fruit with seeds, but when you go to the grocery store, you hardly ever see any grapes with seeds. And so how are they making grapeseed oils? I mean, to me, that's kind of like an oxymoron. I mean, you got grapes with no seeds, and I don't see how they could take them out of there. But then you have all of these bottles of grapeseed oil in the stores, and it's supposed to be so healthy. So I just don't, there's just something about that whole system that I have to do some more research before I will be comfortable suggesting grapeseed oil to people. So as of right now, my research is just saying that there's a lot of good things that people are saying about grapeseed oil. It's just that I can't promote it as of yet. Walia Muhammad says olive oil, avocado oil, sunflower oil is the last one, is safflower oil. Yes, those are the four. I mean, I don't know why I was having a problem getting them up, but that's it, everybody. Olive oil, avocado oil, sunflower oil, and safflower oil are the best oils. They have the proper ratio of your omega oils, the 3 and the 6, and they also, all the ones that we just mentioned, have good antioxidants in them well. And usually they will have some vitamin A and vitamin E in them. And one other point about vitamin D and B12 that I know of. The reason why it's important that we understand that we need to be optimal vegetarians and not something else is that the only place I know of that you can get vitamin D and B12 is in animal sources. So the egg and milk that comes from a cow are the sources that I have in my diet that I get my vitamin D from. And I haven't forgotten about your question about what I eat and then how we lose weight. I'm going to answer these questions. I'm going to get to that. Please make this where I can look at it from the beginning. Yes, Maxine Bland, what happened was I had a Wi-Fi issue and it cut off. So what I'm going to do is download this, piece it together, and then I'll I will put it on Facebook and I'll put it on YouTube, okay? Khalif Messiah, what foods aid in collagen? Collagen is usually something that we get from beans, and we can get that from our vegetables. Good question. Sharon Crockett, you answered the question. Thank you, Aaliyah. Yes. Willie Chu, what do you eat in a typical day? Yeah, I'm about to get to that in just a second. Coronary calcium CT scan, yes. No problem, Sharon. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Okay, so now, for the question about losing weight, the first thing that I do when I'm helping people lose weight is I have them do a food diary. And the reason why I have them do a food diary is because it's always, to me, important for people to evaluate where they are and how they got there and why they're there. And then that helps me help them go in a different direction. But what I would say, if you're interested in losing weight, the first thing you need to do is, if God say the same, take some of the advice that I said today and start evaluating how you can start making some changes to more quality foods. The majority of people that are overweight got overweight for two reasons. One is that we are eating high calorie, low nutritive foods. Meaning I'm buying something that I like the taste of, or I like something because it fills me up, or this is what my wife or my friend, or this is what I buy when such. Fills you up, tastes good to the tongue, but it's not giving you the nutrients that we talked about the body needs. And so you eat, you're full, you're satisfied, and the body keeps calling for hunger. Why? Because you didn't give it what it was calling for. If your body is calling for vitamin C and vitamin B, and you go eat a hamburger from McDonald's, once your body digests that and says, I didn't get any vitamin C, I didn't get any vitamin B, it's going to send a hunger pain again. So those are sometimes the initial way that we start to get overweight, is that we're following the tongue, we're following our stomach, and we're not thinking because we don't necessarily know. And that's why I like doing programs like this, to give us a foundation where we can put the right things in our body. The other thing a lot of times that causes people to be overweight is the fact that you're thirsty. A lot of times we're thirsty, but we're eating. The hunger pain for water and the hunger pain for food is the same thing. And so we have to understand that evaluating why you're overweight is a very important aspect. Now, getting to what I eat. about 4 years ago, I think about 4 years ago, changed from one meal a day to one meal every other day. But typically my meal will start off with some fruit with seeds in them and or a smoothie with some fruit in it. I'll do that, and typically my meals start late because of whatever my schedule is, but I may eat 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. So if I drink that at 6, then I'm not going to start eating my navy beans or my vegetables until probably an hour and a half later. But typically my meals will start with a bowl of bean soup, because bean soup is so important at, like I said earlier, giving nutrition as well as pulling toxins out of the body. And then most of the time I'll have some type of vegetable. My typical vegetables: broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. My wife does a wonderful job of doing those type of things. Like last week we had broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots together. And a lot of times I'll eat salad, but I don't eat salad like typical people. I don't eat lettuce. When I have a salad, I sit down and I'll have avocado, onions, tomatoes, cucumbers, and we make our homemade dressing ourselves. And so while I'm on that subject, these are the type of things that I help people with. And so some of you, for the next couple of months, I'm doing some personal training and some things where I won't be able to do too much traveling. But once March gets here, I can travel to where you are. If you want me to come, you don't have to bring me in yourself. Get a group of people and have me come in. My wife and I will come and we'll have a conversation. We'll talk about eating. We'll go to the grocery store, do a grocery store tour. We'll do some things in the kitchen and show how things can be done to make sure that the nutrients that you're looking for in your food are still there. So these are the type of things I offer. I come in and I do what we call cupboard evaluation, where I'll look in your spice cabinet, things you clean your house with, and what's in your house, what's in your refrigerator, and talk about what are good and what are not, and what you have to readjust. Because think about this, everything that I said today is the way I live my life. But you can take some of the things that I've said today of good and use the wrong type of spices and ruin everything. You can take good food, put it in a pot, put the wrong type of oil in there to cook your food, and you ruin the good food that you have. So we have to be very, very mindful that this brother that you're looking at is talking to you out of 16 years of experience in how to eat to live. 25 years of experience in the medical field, but 16 years at trying to produce a way to take how to eat to live, go into the grocery store, into the kitchen, on the stove, and bring it to the plate so that we can have optimal health. So let me know, I forgot who asked that question about losing weight, but let me know if I answered your question. Is it true that vitamin D is a hormone and not a vitamin, and we get it naturally from the sun? That's a good question. I really think it's, and I don't mean to belittle your question, but to me, whether it's a vitamin or hormone is really irrelevant, because vitamins and hormones are very similar in the way that they work in the body. And a lot of times people try to use that conversation of vitamin versus hormone. That's kind of like the who got the biggest ego type thing. I mean, it really doesn't matter. But your second part of your question is actually very, very significant, because no, we do not get it from the sun. You have to get it from food. When you eat it, the liver transforms it once, the kidney transforms it a second time, and then when the sun hits our skin, it's activated into its greatest form. And so that's my understanding of vitamin D. I call it vitamin D. It could be called hormone D. Like I said, the things that it does in the body are so profound and so great. I mentioned that earlier. Again, I'll put those videos together so people can see that part. But vitamin D is very, very important to the body. Hormone versus vitamin, either way, it's greatly needed, and usually most people are deficient in it because they believe you can go to a store and get a vitamin D3 tablet, and it's just never going to supplant you like it should. Maxine says, I have an off-the-wall question. What a good detox or prep prior to getting metal fill-ins and removal, or what's a good detox follow-up, if any you suggested? That would, Maxine, that would have to be something I have to do particularly for you, because it would depend on, your typical habits, whether you have any other things going on. So please reach out to me and we can make that happen. Alan Bowden, thank you for coming in. Maria is back. Okay, so D. Kiki says, I try to ritually drink 24 ounces of room temperature spring water as soon as I wake up. Is that a good idea? Yeah, I think drinking water when you first get up in the morning and it being room temperature are very good things to do. Number one, drinking water in the morning is important because during the nighttime, as I said, we wake up, and the nighttime is a process that we go through where we get all of our thoughts together, our correct memories are put in the right. So your brain health is very important when you sleep, but also the physical health of the body is improved, and we heal, and we take out things that are unnecessary and things that are no longer good anymore, and we get rid of that. So when we wake up in the morning and your mouth smells and tastes bad, and you got to blow your nose, and you can get something out of the corner of your eye, you have to urinate and you have to defecate, all of that is because of the detoxification process that we go through at night. And so when you wake up in the morning, you drink some water, especially room temperature, meaning that it's very similar to the temperature of your body. That is very, very excellent at promoting even more cleansing, because when we lay flat, the fluid from our lower part of our body comes. That's why we usually have to urinate in the morning. But what you are doing is you're getting a little bit dehydrated after you sleep at night, because you went a long period of time without drinking anything. So yes, starting in drinking some water in the morning is a very, very good activity. And I want to preface, it's very important that it's room temperature, because a lot of us drink cold water. And just think about it. If you get in the shower and you're taking a shower, that the water doesn't have to be hot, but if it's just warm to you and somebody comes in and throws a cold glass of water, it's going to be a shock, right? When you drink cold water, you drink cold substances, it's the same thing. It causes a shock in the body, and now your body has to warm up that water, but also repair whatever that cold water did as damage. So excellent point, D. Kiki. Thank you. Coy Johnson, is it okay to buy frozen organic fruits and vegetables that be in the plastic bags in the store? Yes, they are okay to buy, but we should consider that second best to fresh fruits and vegetables. But like I said before, I do fruit smoothies, and so the fruit that I use in my smoothies, they are in plastic bags and they're frozen, always organic. All right, so just make sure they're organic. But yes, they are good for you, but just make sure you always put things in the right priority. Fresh is always better. Frozen would be next. Good question. Maxine, thank you. Please send where I reach out to. Yes, I'm going to put all that information at the end. Aloe Sounds. Well, I think what you and your wife are doing is absolutely amazing, brother. I appreciate you and your time and answering my questions. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming in and asking some great questions, and I hope you continue to come back. D. Kiki, can you put your contact information on the comments below so that we can contact you, set up for you to come to our city for a class and tour? Absolutely. My wife is actually putting in the information right now. So look, I'm going to continue to do these type of programs, and coming probably in the next couple of months, I'm going to take it to another level. I'm getting some more audio visual equipment so that I can make these presentations much better. I'm going to start having some interviews with other people. And so you all, I thank you very much for coming in. I thank you for your great questions. Those of you who are new or those that have been around, send me some other topics that you may want me to cover. Oh, I forgot I got to answer Sharon's Crockett's question before I get off. But I also want to say this. Look, I am the Ultimate Wellness Group on Facebook, the Ultimate Wellness Group on Instagram, the Ultimate Wellness Group on YouTube. And I need as many people as I can to go and follow me on YouTube, because until I get 1,000 followers, I can't do my YouTube live broadcast like this. So please, if you all, I don't want you to subscribe to my channel just because. If you think that I'm giving you valuable information, if you think that what I'm giving you can help benefit your life and help boost you and get you to an optimal place in your health, then follow my YouTube and ask a couple other people to follow it too, so that I can continue to put this type of material out and help people improve their health. So Sharon Crockett, you said that you had a CT scan and there is, let me go back and see it real quick, coronary calcium on a CT scan, okay? I'm gonna have to show a quick picture. So give me just a second, let me pull something up, and then I wanna show you all what this is. So let me see. Usually when you have any type of calcification in a blood vessel, it's because of some type of damage or some type of injury that happened to that blood vessel. So I want to just show a picture of a blood vessel really quick, and then we can talk about what you asked. So there, artery, that's the vein. These are the capillaries. That's where you exchange. That's where you send your nutrients out into the tissue. So if an organ needs something, or a muscle, or a bone, or anything like that, this is where we actually release the nutrients from the food, from the things that we get into the body, and that's how it gets into the places where it needs to go. Now, if you have a coronary vessel that has calcium in it, it could be an artery or it could be a vein. But typically what happens is that you have a damage to something, and when we're not healing correctly, we heal with calcium. It's called fibrosis. So if any of you have ever had an injury, like you cut yourself, scrape yourself, some type of scab grows on you, right? Sometimes once the scab goes away, you don't even know where you were injured. You can't even tell. But then sometimes you'll have a scar that you see for the rest of your life. So depending on how we heal, if you don't have the type of diet or the type of lifestyle where you're detoxified, if you're highly toxic, if your body has a lot of meat in it and you have a lot of things that don't allow you to heal well, we calcify things. They become hard. They don't work well. And so when you have a picture of your brain, which is a CT, is a picture of the brain, and they see calcification, there was some type of injury there, and that is showing that something happened there in the past. In order to get any further, I would have to have more information, but that's typically why you would have calcification in the coronary CT. Okay? So I thank you all for coming in today. I appreciate all the wonderful questions, all the wonderful interaction, and more than likely, let me take that back, not more than likely. I pray that I answered the question of how to get optimal vegetarianism. So you all, I'm hoping that you got information today, news that you can use to improve your life and to make your health what it is that you want, whether you are on a healing journey or whether you're on a healing improvement, right? If you have any type of medical problems, that's what I do. I try to help put programs together to help people heal. But in general, I like to give information so that people can improve their overall health and not have to fall into the traps of this medical system that we have here. So thank you all. Maxine, thank you for subscribing. May Helen, thank you for coming in. Corey Johnson, don't forget you are supposed to tell us where you get your milk from. Oh yeah, Schulenburg, Texas. There is a farm out there. I'll have to get the specific name of it, but it's in Schulenburg, Texas. We are working on trying to get our own farm back up and producing milk, but that's going to take a little minute. We got some things we got to take care of, but right now that's where we get it. I will get the specific information and put it in here so you can see that. Okay, Maria, what are your thoughts on naturopath treatment doctors? I can't really say what my thoughts are, Sister Maria, because it really depends. There are medical doctors, naturopaths, chiropractors, herbologists, so-called natural healers. Some of them are actually money-oriented. They're commercializers. All they want to do is sell you products. And some are good. So, it really just depends. That's something that you really have to evaluate because, the one thing that I know that I can say with 100% certainty is that my motivation factor is not money. My motivation factor is that you all get the type of information that improves you and helps you be able to combat the commercialism that's out there. So, I think each person that you interact with, you'd have to do that type of evaluation and see what you think their motivating factor is. So I apologize, but that's the best answer I can give you. Waleed Muhammad, thank you for the vital information. Thank you for coming in. Stephanie X, thank you, thank you. Cynthia Muhammad, finally I catch you live. I would love you and your wife to visit DC. I'll hit you up on YouTube. Absolutely. Bring us in. Let's do it. Starting in March. Corey Johnson just messaged me. Okay, yes. DKiki, thank you, and we appreciate all that you do. And I thank you all for coming in. Thank you for your patience today with the Wi-Fi issues, and thank you all for your wonderful questions and wonderful interaction. I pray again that you got news that you can use. Something that you learned today can help improve your health. Keep coming back. Check me out on my other sites. And remember, good health in a society like we live in can only happen if you work hard on your health. So it's learning and then applying those changes. So until the next time, you all take care of yourself and keep working hard on your health. Peace.